What is up, everybody? Welcome back to 9 to 5 Gamers, and you already know it's Top 10 Tuesday. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of my favorite drafting games today. But before we get into that, just want to go ahead and remind you guys to like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to check out memberships, and as well, a little update. They came in. So we've got 2 copies of Carcassonne, Miss Silver Carcassonne, which is the cooperative version of Carcassonne. I am giving out 2 copies of this game for free, and I will pay shipping. So if anybody ever says, hey, you won, you just got to give us shipping, they're lying, they're scamming you, okay? This contest is only for the United States, so if you'd like to enter this giveaway and be a part of it, you have to live within the United States, just because shipping ain't cheap, and I do want to ship these games out as soon as possible. Now, we're going to give another week for you guys, so next week is when I'm going to draw the winners. I am giving away 1 copy to my subscribers and 1 copy to my members. Memberships, we only have maybe 7 people who are members, so the odds of you, and actually some of them are international, so they're not going to be entering the contest, but they said soon you guys, I will be doing an international contest. But since they won't be entering the contest, you guys have an opportunity to become a member, and you have a more of likelihood chance of winning that one. Your odds are a lot bigger than for the subscriber one. If you do want to enter the contest, it's very simple. Just in the last video that I did, should be up in this corner, there is a video that I did for the contest. Go ahead in the comments section and just put your favorite game with a bunch of exclamation marks. If you are a member, you're automatically entered to win, and if you get picked, you win the prize, all right? And if for some reason the person doesn't contact me, you could reach out to me. My email should be there, available on my page. If you are announced as the winner, I will reach out to you, or hopefully you could reach out to me with your email, and you can send me your address so I can go ahead and send you these games. Like I said, I'm paying for everything, so go ahead and get into the comment section of that last video, and also become a member, man. Becoming a member is awesome. Also, I'm going to be doing exclusive giveaways that are just for members, so I want you guys to be a part of that, so make sure you guys check that out. But without further ado, let's get into my top 10 drafting games. All right, so top 10 drafting games. Let's first talk about what drafting is. Drafting is a mechanism in which you get a hand of cards, or maybe it's chips or some kind of thing that you are gaining a few of them as a starting hand, and then you take those cards, pass them to the next player, and the player to your right is going to pass you some cards, and then you look through those cards and you pick a card and then you pass it. That's the mechanic of drafting. It's just some kind of, I'm picking this and then passing the rest of it on so somebody else can pick from it. You guys kind of see this if you've ever watched sports. They do draft picks all the time, but in board games it's a really cool mechanism. Now, in order for them to make this list, they have to have drafting as a main mechanism of the game. That means that there are certain games where at the beginning of the game you do a draft and then you don't for the rest of the game. I'm not putting any of those in here. Only games where it is a mechanism that you use throughout the game. And the game may have other mechanisms, obviously. There's not going to be any picks that are just solo, just drafting alone, because a lot of these games use drafting, but they use other mechanisms as well. But these are just my top 10 drafting games. And this is a really fun list. I got to be honest with you, I really like this list. So honorable mentions are going to be Sushi Go, which is a great drafting party game, very easy to play. You guys have never played Sushi Go, you got to play it. Another honorable mention would be Beer and Bread, great drafting game. Actually, that one's really, really fun. Surprised it didn't make the list, but it just was shy of the cut. And also want to put out there Draftosaurus. Draftosaurus just barely missed out on the cut, although I think it could have been in the cut. But Draftosaurus is a fantastic drafting game, and instead of drafting cards, you're drafting little dinosaur meeples. Check out that game, it's really cool. So let's get into this top 10. My number 10 drafting game is a game called Beast. If you've never played Beast, this is a hidden movement game where you are playing, one player plays as this monster, and the other people are trying to hunt that monster down, and you are hidden on the map. Only you know where you are, but everybody is trying to track you because everybody's a hunter. Really cool, because the reason I like this game and why I put it on my top 10 is because I feel like the drafting is very interesting in this game. You are using cards, you guys are drafting cards, but the thing is that every card has a hunter ability and a beast ability. So it's like, when I'm gonna pass this cards to the beast, for example, I'm gonna look at that card and go, oh my gosh, this thing lets the beast move like 3 spaces, and it's like, I probably should take this so the beast doesn't get it, and I'm sure I'll get some good cards in return, and I can maybe get, this other one that lets me attack or do something. So you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and pass these on instead of this one, and I'm gonna keep this one so the beast doesn't get it. And the beast does the same thing. They can draft and look at what the hunter ability that they're giving away is. I thought that was super, super cool, that you're both playing a very different type of game. One is trying to hide and find prey to pick on. The others are the hunters just trying to find this one monster. It's such a fantastic game. I really love it. It's one of my favorite hidden movement games that I've played, I think you guys should definitely check it out. And lately I've been seeing it a lot more in stores, and there's a Kickstarter for it called The Shattered Isle, so you can actually get it there, along with the expansion and the upgraded minis that they're going to be coming with, which I'm super pumped. I hope I can get a copy of this game, but money has just been super tight, so probably won't be able to get that one, but maybe I'll find it in the stores, right? But that is my number 10. My number 9 is going to be kind of like a tie between 2 games, and that's just Seven Wonders in general. So Seven Wonders has a ton of expansions. It's a really good drafting game. It could play with up to 7 people, so it's really cool because you can expand it and make it play with a ton of people. But if you are the type of gamers that you only like to play with 2 people, then I recommend Seven Wonders Duel, because that is a 2-player exclusive. But if you like to have a lot of people come over the house, Seven Wonders is going to be your go-to for that. Just depends on player count. Although I think objectively, I think Seven Wonders Duel is a much better game. It's the same thing with Splendor Duel. But anyways, the drafting in Seven Wonders is just that standard drafting. You got a hand of cards, you take one, pass the rest of them down, and then you guys will place these cards and play them into your little I always don't know what to call it, but your playing area, you have things that produce resources. Then you can use those resources to buy new cards, and it's just drafting. It's really, really fun, and Seven Wonders is such a good game. The drafting in Seven Wonders Duel is a little bit different. So instead of putting the cards in a hand and then passing it back and forth between 2 people, all of the cards are placed in these weird pyramid shapes, and then when you take a card, the 2 cards that are touching that card get flipped over for your opponent to take from. And so sometimes it's like, I want to take this card, but if I do take it, it's going to flip over 2 new cards, and I don't want my opponent to get those cards. I love that mechanic, and I love that way, that form of drafting. And you could also hate draft, so if there's a card in the row, you could actually just scrap it and throw it out, because your opponent's gonna take it if you don't, and so you can just literally get rid of it, and you end up getting like coins for it or something. So really cool. Seven Wonders, you can't go wrong with either of these. I think that there's room in your collection for both. The only reason I don't have Seven Wonders Duel in mine is because my wife doesn't enjoy playing it, and she's the person I play 2-player games with the most. So that's Seven Wonders, my number 9. My number 8 is a game that I'm surprised that's actually above Seven Wonders, but it's very similar to Seven Wonders. But it's a game called Planted, and it's a Phil Walker Harding game that you can get at Target for like $30 or less. And it feels a lot like Seven Wonders. It's got the drafting, but in this game you have plants that you are in a new nursery, and you're going to take those plants and put them in front of you, and you're allowed to have up to 6 potted plants. And then the cards you're drafting are resource cards, so you can take like a double sun card, which will give me 2 sun resources that I can use to feed my plants. Every plant that you have in your little garden that you have in front of you has a specific resource cost to feed it every single turn. And so you can only feed each plant once per turn, but a lot of them grow up to like 3 lengths, so it's like you have to feed them 3 times in order to get them to be fully grown, and then they produce points for every single time that you give them growth. It's such a cool game, man, and there's tools that the tools will help you with gaining resources. So it's like every time you get a sun, you get an extra sun on top of that. Super, super great. And then there are these little pink cards that are your like decorations, but those are just added bonus like scoring at the end of the game. Man, Planted is a lot better than you would think it would be. And I was blown away by this game. Not only blown away by the fact that the drafting is really good and really fun, and you kind of reverse draft and stuff like that, but the thing that I love about it most is the production quality. For a $30 game, this is a lot of game. I mean, the sun tokens and the water tokens, it's high quality stuff. I don't know how they produced this game for $30, but that was incredible, man. And Phil Walker Harding did such a good job with that one. So that is my number 8, Planted. My number 7 is actually a game that I played at Dice Tower Convention, and I knew that I was going to kind of like it because I had heard a little bit about it. And people had recommended it. I saw it a couple of times on was it All You Can Board? No, I think it was in the Board Game Garden. And Jenna had mentioned it, I believe, and I know there's a couple of other people that have played it, and it's called It's a Wonderful World. I got to play this at Dice Tower, and all of these YouTubers have spoken highly of it, and I wanted to try it for myself, and I really enjoyed that game. That is a solid drafting game, and you've got these cards, and you can draft cards, and they become these buildings that you can build up, and when you do, you put them into your city, and then they produce resources for you each turn, and whoever produces the most resources gets bonus, like a bonus point. You get multipliers, and the thing is that the cards that you're drafting, some of them you can just scrap to get instant resources to pay off the cards that you're in your production zone. And so once you pay a card's cost, then it goes into your city to produce resources for you. And like I said, some of them produce a couple of cubes as resources. Some of them produce multipliers where it says for every green card you have in your city, you get 2 times points. And you keep multiplying that up with every other multiplier card you add, and your points start to rack up real quick. It is a great drafting game. I had an amazing time playing it. I really loved it, and I think that I think a lot of people would be pretty pleased with the drafting in this game. It's super fun. I felt like every choice was meaningful. I felt like I was making good choices, and there was times where I was like, oh, this was a bad choice, because you're like, man, there's like 3 black cards in my hand, and I need a black card, and you know what? It'll probably come back around, and then you give it to your opponents, and you're just one by one, they're all taking the black cards, and you're like, no, by the time it gets back to you, you're like, oh man, I knew I should have taken one. Now I'm not going to be able to produce the resources that I need. Every decision matters. Every choice you make matters in that game. It's such a good, tight, crunchy game. I love It's a Wonderful World. My number 6, I also got to play at Dice Tower East, but I own the game, and I think it's a phenomenal game, and that's Inish. Inish is a drafting game, but you have 17 cards, green cards that you're going to draft from, and everybody gets 4 cards. 1 card is placed on the outside of the game, so it's like you don't know exactly which ones are in play because any one of them could have been taken out, so you don't know which one's out of play, rather. But you're drafting these 16 cards, and then in the next round, you draft those same 16 cards. Now, there are some other cards that you can get. There's the yellow cards, which you usually get depending if you've taken over a certain region, if that region's in play. But then there's like these red cards that are like these like elite cards that have like really strong abilities. But it's just, I didn't realize just how strategic this game could be with playing with the same 16 cards. The only game that I saw that was like that was actually there's a couple of games like that in my collection. Airland and Sea. Airland and Sea is insane. The Critters at War version is my favorite, but that's, again, it's like only 18 cards, but the strategic depth with just those 18 cards, that's exactly how I felt about Inish, man. Inish is a long game, though, but, man, it was such a good game. I really enjoyed playing it. It lives up to the hype, I believe, but it's still not as good as the others in the trilogy for me personally, but I still have to play Cyclades, but for drafting, this is a great drafting game, man. If you've never played Inish, you got to try it, man. It's so cool the way that they utilize the drafting in this game, and how some of the cards cancel out other cards, and then there's a card that will let you take the card that's out of play, put it into play, and switch it out with a card in your hand. Some of the cards cancel effects of other cards. It's just really, really cool, man. Inish is great, and you should really get a chance to play it. My number 5 is another one of my favorite drafting games, which is Isle of Cats. I love cats. I love cats. I love cats. Isle of Cats. I love Isle of Cats. Does it sound like I'm saying I love cats? But yeah, so I really love this game. The drafting in this game is super cool, man, because it's got this drafting, mechanism where, and it's a polyomino placement game. So there's a lot going on in this game, and it's not just about the drafting, but the drafting does matter because when you're drafting, in order to capture the cats, you need baskets, and in order to do that, you need fish to lure them to capture them in the basket. And so, like, you're drafting cards that have like baskets on them. Some of them have half baskets. They have boots on them, which determines the player order, and maybe you want to go heavy on the boots so you can get one of the cats that you know is going to fit perfectly into your boat, and using the drafting for that purpose. And then there's like, these wild cats called the Oshaks that it's like, man, these cats are like really oddly shaped, but they count as any color that you want. Such a great game, man. I think there's a lot going on in this game, and there's a lot going on for it. And I like it because it's a great family game as well, because I love cats. Even if you have younger kids, you can play the family version where you just basically, everybody chooses a cat, puts it in their boat, and then you just keep doing that. It was really cool, man. I really love Isle of Cats, and it is my number 5 drafting game. My number 4, which is incredible that it is this high, but I fell in love with this game, man, and there's been a couple of people who have been championing it for a while, and I think that the more people start to play it, the more people start going, man, this is actually a good game, and that is Millfiori. Millfiori, spectacular drafting game, and it's got this gigantic board where you have all these diamond shapes everywhere, and you are trying to get clusters of shapes. Other places you're trying to most of them are just like big clusters, but some of them you're trying to collect sets of things, and the other ones you're trying to collect different sets. So it's like, I want different numbers, so it's like in one of them you want to get all of the symbols that are there, all of the same symbols, and that gives you more points. This one is like, you need to have different numbers, and the way that it works is that you draft cards, because you have these little tiles that you can place, these little, like, they're not glass, but they're plastic, but they look like glass. It's like stained glass almost. And everybody has their own stained glass pieces, and in order to place them, you have to play a card to place it. The card you play comes from a hand of cards that you are drafting around, and depending on which of the cards you play depends where you can place it. So if you want to place it in this other zone, you need to make sure you have that card. And it's like, man, I really need this zone over here, and if I do later on, I can get a lot of points, but right now it's not going to give me a lot of points, and I'm kind of like not in the lead right now. So that game was really, really cool, man. I loved Millfiori so much. The drafting is so fun, and there's all these combos that come out of it. So it's like, when I play, what to choose really depends on where you're positioned on the game board, because it's like, hey, I can choose this and I can get 10 points, but if I do this one, I'll only get 2 points, but then it'll complete this hex over here. Not this hex, but this little pyramid. And when I complete this pyramid, I'll get to play a card, and one of the cards that I want to play in my hand is in the market, so I can just play that one, which will let me play over here, which will get me another card. And there's all these combos and stuff. Dude, Millfiori is fantastic. So that if you've never tried Millfiori, please get on it, man. It's such a good game. I think Devere is the one who's producing it right now, so if you can get a copy of that, find a copy. It's super, super good. That's my number 4. My number 3, Terraforming Mars, man, because, and for some, if you played Terraforming Mars, you might be thinking, well, I don't remember there being drafting. Well, that's because there is a drafting variant of the game. And honestly, I think that's the best way to play because it adds such a level of player interaction, of being able to draft cards rather than just taking 4 cards, you're drafting them. And in that game, man, it really matters what choices you make and what you give to your opponents. You got to be very aware of what you're getting rid of and what you're keeping, because in Terraforming Mars, it's all about terraforming the planet. And it's whoever does the most work in terraforming the planet wins the game. And so being able to stop your opponent and kind of interject and be able to do that with that variant, it's super, super good. If you've never played Terraforming Mars with a drafting variant, you need to play it. I think it's the way to play that game. I think the other ways are great too, don't get me wrong. But if you've never played the drafting variant, you need to. And if you haven't heard of Terraforming Mars, great game. And you can get it probably pretty cheap right now. My recommendation, if you're going to buy Terraforming Mars, get Terraforming Mars and buy the Prelude expansion so that you can speed the game up a little bit. Also, don't play with the drafting to start. If you've never played Terraforming Mars, don't start with the drafting. Learn the game, play maybe 1 or 2 times the regular version of the game so you understand the cards and what cards exist and know how to draft well. So that way when you play the drafting version, you'll know exactly what you need to take and what you should leave. But yeah, that's my number 3 is Terraforming Mars. My number 2 is Blood Rage. Blood Rage is an area control game, a little bit like Inish, and it's kind of similar because you're drafting cards. But in this game, I love when you're drafting how in your hand they're just like different cards that are gonna help upgrade, and so it's like I have an option to like upgrade my warriors, and I'm gonna do more damage and more attack power, and that's gonna be good in the long run. So I'd rather upgrade my warriors. But man, there's a monster in here that if I take it, knowing that there's only like 3 or 4 monsters to begin with, it's like, oh man, I really got to take this monster. But then when you give those cards to your opponent, you're like, man, I hope this works out for me. But Blood Rage is such a cool area control game, and I love that they have drafting as the way that you get your cards for that round. And then all of those cards need to synergize with what you're trying to do strategy-wise, because you're going to be able to play them out one at a time on your turns. And it's kind of like a planning phase where you're just kind of taking cards and planning how you want to do that. And I just love I love being able to do that. Another thing too that I didn't mention before with Inish too is I like the drafting in Inish because you take 1 card from the 4 and then you pass 3, and then when the next 3 come to you, you pick up the 3 and then you put the card that you chose back into your hand and then choose 2. So you can actually, like, at a certain point jettison cards and go, you know what, I see some strategy working here, so maybe I should have had Inish a little higher. That was such a cool, I love that because they don't do that a lot in drafting. It's just kind of like you draft, you're stuck with it. But I just think that Blood Rage is a better game than Inish. But the drafting in Blood Rage is very good, but it's not like the best drafting I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, there are different types of drafts that exist. They just have like that regular plain old pass to your left type drafting, but the game is so solid, and I just really, really like it. My number 1, unfortunately, and I guess I didn't think about this because it's a part of my collection. I can oftentimes add it to lists and go, dang, I really shouldn't have put this on the list because this is one of those games that you can't find, and that is Comic Hunters. Comic Hunters is the premier drafting game. Like, dude, it has so many different types of drafts. It's got this auction system, but the drafting in that game is so cool, man. You got like the regular draft at first, then you've got the drafting where it's like you have like rows of cards, and then it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to place a card into this row, and should I take this row or should I add another card to one of the rows? You know what, I'm just going to add another card because we can get up to 4. Oh man, that's a really good one. I'm just going to add it to this pile over here. Maybe it'll come back around me and then I could take that. And then everybody just takes turns adding to that pile. There's the draft where it's like you can like move stuff around and reposition cards in this big rectangular shape, and then say, I'm taking Doctor Strange's, and you take all the Doctor Strange's and put them in a pile. And it's just really cool, man. It's a Marvel game where you're just collecting like sets of comics, and you use a lot of drafting mechanics to do that. It is so much fun, man. It's one of those games that I'm like, man, I can't wait for them to bring this to like America. Right now, it's only be found in Brazil, in Portuguese, and if you manage to get your hands on it, BGG has the English rule set. But man, Comic Hunters is just great. It is the best drafting game that I've ever played, and I will fight for that hill or die on that hill. I don't remember. I don't want to die, but yeah, man, that is definitely my favorite drafting game, and I believe it would be yours too. But again, it's just one of those things. Don't pay too much for Comic Hunters. Just wait for it to come out in English. But if you can find a copy cheap, you should get it because it is super, super good, and that's why it's my favorite draft game. But with all that said, there's a lot of drafting games I haven't played, so leave them in the comments section. In the comments section, tell me a drafting game that didn't make my list that you love and think that would be really good for my collection. Always looking to improve my collection, which, by the way, this is getting out of hand, man. So it used to be these two shelves were my shelf of shame. It is now extended to here, all the way down to about here. So all these two and all of that is all unplayed games, and everything here I have played to that side. So, but anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Please become a member, man. I want to have a lot of members so we can do more giveaways. All the games, all the money that I get from this channel, I would like to make money from this channel, so that would be great. So the more members, the better. But I really want to take the money that I gain from this channel and just pour it back into the community, buy games for people. And if you happen to win a copy of like Mists Over Carcassonne and you already have the game, give it to a person that isn't a gamer yet, and maybe this would be a nice gateway game for them to get into the hobby. I think Carcassonne is gateway, but anyway, that's it, y'all. Peace out. Check you guys out later. Catch you on the flippity flip.